thanks everyone for coming, and good afternoon. And thanks for joining us for the Women in Service Review Implementation Plan Briefing. Today we've got representatives from every service, Special Operations Command, and the Office of the Secretary of Defense. They're going to briefly discuss their plans, which were submitted to the Secretary in May. After they've all briefed their plans, we'll go to questions. Quickly, I'll run through the briefers. Ms. Juliet Byler, who's at the Office of Secretary of Defense, is the Director of Officer and Enlisted Personnel Management. Lieutenant General Bromberg, Lieutenant General Howard Bromberg, U.S. Army G1. Colonel John Ates, United States Marine Corps Head of Military Policy, Head of the Military Policy Branch. Major General Bennett Sokolic, U.S. Special Operations Command, Director of Force Management and Development. Rear Admiral Tony Curta, U.S. Navy Director of Military Personnel Plans and Policy, N13. And then Brigadier General Gina Grosso, U.S. Air Force Director of Force Management Policy, Deputy Chief of Staff for Manpower, Personnel, and Services. So this briefing is completely on the record, and with that, Ms. Byler, over to you.
So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm joined by senior military representatives from each service and U.S. Special Operations Command. I know you're all very interested in what we're about to say, so I'll get right to the point. This afternoon, we're releasing each service and SOCOM's plans for how they will manage the incremental integration of women into previously closed units and occupations throughout the U.S. military. I'll offer a few remarks and then turn it over to each of them to brief their respective plans. The Department's goal is to ensure that the mission is met with the best, most fully qualified, and most capable people, regardless of gender. To that end, on January 24th of this year, then Secretary Panetta and Chairman Dempsey announced the decision to rescind the 1994 Direct Ground Combat Definition and Assignment Rule. They directed development of plans describing how each service and SOCOM intends to integrate women into previously closed jobs and how they intend to execute the guidance to 1. Review and validate all occupational standards to ensure that they're current, operationally relevant, and applied gender neutrally by September 2015. 2, to complete all studies by September of 2015. And finally, to ensure full implementation by January 1st, 2016. Each military department secretary, along with Admiral McRaven, submitted their plans in mid-May. Those plans were then reviewed by the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'll let my colleagues talk to the specifics of their plans, but here are a few things that each have in common. Each service and SOCOM will manage the incremental opening of their positions following the notification to Congress along 2 general categories. 1, currently open occupations which were previously restricted based on unit of assignment. So, for instance, an administrative clerk in a tank battalion or a truck driver in an artillery battalion. Currently closed occupations, that's the second group. That's, for example, infantry, armor, and special operations. Each service and SOCOM is working with various scientific and research agencies to review and validate operational standards to ensure that they are current, definitively tied to an operational requirement, and applied on a gender-neutral basis. Each service and SOCOM is conducting a thorough doctrine, training, education, facilities, and policy analysis to ensure deliberate and responsible implementation. And finally, each service and SOCOM has identified decision points by which they will make final determinations to open occupations and positions or to request an exception to policy to keep a position or occupation closed. Exceptions to policy must be personally approved by the Secretary of Defense and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Army, Lieutenant General Bromberg, sir.
Thank you, and good afternoon. Thanks for this opportunity. The Army is very excited about the approval of our plan, implementation plan, as we move forward for the Soldier of 2020. As you know, we started in 2012 before the Direct Ground Combat Assignment Rule was removed, with exceptions to policy inside of 9 brigade combat teams where we placed women down in positions that were previously closed. And that exception to policy, we learned a lot of things and we went forward with that. And so following the SecDef's announcement earlier this year, we've further gone out in the next step and expanded it to 17 more brigade combat teams, and 9 of those being in the National Guard. So now we'll across the total force with expanding opportunities for women in these positions. Our plan, as you'll see, has basically 4 lines of effort or 4 major avenues of approach here. And that's first by opening positions that are previously restricted by the Direct Ground Combat Assignment Rules, such as I just talked about, those positions in the brigade combat teams. And then their second line is to focus on gender-neutral standards, focus on the task requirements as we move forward. And then our third line of effort is focused on a gender integration study, looking at those social and cultural aspects of integrating women into formations where there have never been women historically before. And then our fourth line of effort worked very closely with Special Operations Command as they move forward in those areas where we're expanding opportunity for women there. Our approach is integrated, it's scientific, and it's incremental with decision points all along the way to get for the best soldier in 2020 and also expand these opportunities for women as we move forward. Again, we're very excited about the approval of our plan. Look forward to discussing it with you.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon. The Marine Corps' approach is we are taking a very deliberate, a very measured, and a responsible approach towards this, where we're conducting some formal and informal research involving the collection and analysis of both qualitative and quantitative data. Our research plan essentially has two components. First, we're assessing previously closed military occupational specialties, or MOSs. We have 335 primary MOSs, of which 32 are currently closed to females. Second, we're evaluating the integration of female Marines into a variety of the 303 open MOSs into selected ground combat units right now, units that were closed to females under the previous policy. For example, the female Marine adjutant can be assigned and is assigned to a tank battalion. Data collected over these two components will be analyzed and assessed in 3 phases across the next 3 years. So our plan is we're approaching this policy from the standard, it's a comprehensive approach. It's a .mil-PF perspective from a doctrine, operations, and training, and so on, to ensure that we thoroughly examine this issue from a whole-of-force manner. We would do this in any kind of institutional change for this organization. In phase 1, during the first component of our research, we're going to be reviewing and validating those gender-neutral physical standards for all of our 335 of our primary MOSs. To date, we've determined that there are more than 250 physically demanding tasks among those primary MOSs, and what we have done is we've developed 5 proxy tests to represent these various tasks. This summer, we will test 400 male and 400 female Marines using those proxy tests, and then we're going to correlate that data against those Marines' existing physical fitness test and combat fitness test, or PFT and CFT events. And using that information as collected, we're going to try to build a safe, a very simple screening test that we're going to use to contract our applicants coming into the Marine Corps. Also in phase 1, during the second component of our research, we're assessing that integration of female Marines into those selected ground combat units. We're getting qualitative feedback from the participants as well as the commanders themselves, and this information is going to be used in conjunction with the quantitative data collected from our physical tests to inform recommendations on our way forward. Our recommendation will be to open MOSs or units, or to request a policy exemption for identified MOSs or those units as we go forward. In phase 2, we're going to set conditions for the implementation of our way forward recommendations. For example, if we recommend opening MOSs or units, setting conditions for force-wide implementation will include actions such as modifying facilities or educating the force to get that done. In phase 3, we're going to execute our way forward recommendations. So, for example, again, if we recommend implementing a policy without exemptions, we'll open those identified MOSs and units, or units in a logical sequence that neither impacts the combat effectiveness of the unit nor the capability of the individual Marine. What does this mean now? Right now we're collecting data. We are continuing to physically test male and female Marines. We're continuing to assess the integration of those female Marines assigned to selected ground combat units. And we're using this very deliberate methodology to ensure we do this right. Right means we maintain combat effective units across the total force, and we don't set our female Marines up for failure by not preparing them for any resultant institutional change. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll begin by stating that Admiral McCraven applauds the Department's decision to eliminate the direct combat assignment rule. However, we have some genuine concerns that must be addressed prior to making an informed recommendation to the Secretary of Defense, a recommendation which complies with the Chairman's guiding principles of preserving unit readiness, cohesion, and morale. Of particular concern is our mission set, which predominantly requires our forces to operate in small, self-contained teams, many of which are in austere, geographically isolated, politically sensitive environments for extended periods of time. This complexity requires a unique assessment predicated upon detailed analysis, ultimately providing a single, clear, consistent procedure for execution throughout the SOCOM enterprise. Because our forces are inherently joint, a decision made by a single service can have ripple effects across the SOCOM enterprise. Therefore, we have and will continue to work closely with the services as we move forward. However, the scope of our analysis will focus on the following 8 occupational specialties plus the infantrymen assigned to the Ranger Regiment, totaling approximately 16,000 special operations positions, all assigned to SOCOM. In the Navy Special Warfare Command, we are looking at our SEALs and our special boat crew members. In the Marine Special Operations Command, we are looking at our Marine critical skill operators. In the Air Force Special Operations Command, we are looking at our Special Tactics Officers, Combat Controllers, Special Operations Weather Personnel. And in the Army Special Operations Command, we're looking at our Special Forces and our Rangers. Because the Rangers are infantrymen, that will be dependent upon an Army decision to ultimately integrate. Total, as I referenced before, is approximately 15,497 positions based upon fiscal year 13 numbers. Additionally, we have many enablers, 46 additional occupational specialties that are serving in SOCOM and require close coordination with the services before we can make a decision on those MOSs. Our analysis will focus on 4 independent but mutually supporting efforts. First, our subordinate command components are in the process of conducting a thorough review focusing on their organization, training, education, and leader development programs. We are reviewing every single task in each of our entry-level qualification courses to ensure that they are decisively tied to an operational requirement. Second, our Center for Special Operations Research and Study at our Joint Special Operations University is conducting multiple studies, but primarily focused on the social implications of integrating women at the team level. Third, we have commissioned RAND to study both the behavior and cultural aspects of integrating women into our formations that operate in that remote special operations environment. We have also asked them to provide a non-biased third-party analysis of our qualification course standards. And finally, we've also asked RAND to conduct a comprehensive survey of every single SOF operator in the SOCOM enterprise, similar to the study they conducted on DoD's behalf in preparation for the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And finally, I have personally discussed this initiative with Admiral McCraven, along with the vast majority of SOF leadership, and I can assure you we are not predisposed to any particular course of action. Once the studies are complete and all the facts and the data have been collected, the U.S. SOCOM commander, in conjunction with the service chiefs, will make their recommendation to the Secretary of Defense. At this point, no decisions have been made. And I'll state that again. We haven't made any decisions whatsoever. We're going to spend the next year collecting, analyzing data. All these studies previously references will be due to us 1 July 2014. We will then make our recommendation to the Secretary of Defense 1 July 2015, a year later, along the prescribed timeline. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Navy's plan is a continuation of our efforts over the last 19 years to steadily expand opportunities for women. In 1994, we started assigning women to surface ships, and in the past 2 years, we have started assigning women officers to submarines. We've also been assigning women to our coastal riverine forces for the past 4 years. While 88% of all of our billets are open to women, we are committed to do more. Our plan continues and accelerates the steady march to equal professional opportunity. The Navy will have no closed occupations, a very limited number of closed positions, and equal professional opportunity for females in every officer designator and every enlisted rating by 2016. Our specifics of our plan: we intend in July of 2013 to notify Congress of our intent to open the Coastal Riverine Force small craft to female officers and enlisted. Upon approval, there will be no restrictions to the assignment of females in the Coastal Riverine Force. As coordinated with the Marine Corps, we intend to assign females to the ground combat element as positions are opened by the Marine Corps. Navy personnel will adhere to Marine Corps occupational standards where applicable.